So what really got me into collecting was Billy came over to my apartment one day with a box that had an Atari 2600 and I don't know, maybe 20, 30 games with it.
That was off eBay. My grandfather had died several years prior. I remember just really longing for old video games because I really associated playing old games at their house, at my grandfather's house, because that's where we had the Atari, the Nintendo, we had them all at their house. I really missed him. I missed those times. I missed being over there, and I think it was really a way to reconnect with all that. So I went out and, got an Atari, a 2600. I actually bought it on eBay, but it was a local place that I could actually pick it up. So I ended up picking up the Atari 2600. I was ecstatic, and there was probably 20 to 30 games with it. And of course, the first thing that I do is go to Jay's.
And he walks in, he shows me this Atari box of Atari stuff, and I'm like, where'd you get that?
We hook up this 2600, and I'm immediately just overwhelmed with nostalgia. Like, holy crap, I'm playing Space Invaders again. Holy crap, I'm playing Pac-Man again. Granted, it's not an excellent game, but I do have a lot of memories with Pac-Man.
Honestly, I was just being petty, and I was like, well, I want one too. So Billy says, well, next time I go out, come with me.
All these games that I'm sitting there playing, and I'm thinking to myself, this could be the start of something big. Like, I could feel the addiction coming on right then and there. Like, I want to get some more of the games that I remember playing on the 2600 on the television. Gotta have it in television because of Burger Time.
One of the first things I wanted to get when I started collecting was an NES. NES is absolutely one of my favorite consoles of all time. I'd probably put it top 2, top 3. I have very fond memories of playing the Nintendo Entertainment System and playing games like Mike Tyson's Punch-Out!, Excite Bike, Super Mario Brothers, Duck Hunt, Mario Brothers, Mario Brothers 3. All those games, I loved all that growing up.
Of course, an NES. Don't even remember at this point what happened to my old NES with my old Super Nintendo. I know actually I sold the Super Nintendo to get a Game Boy Advance at one point, but for the actual NES, I have no clue where it went. And that stung a lot because my grandfather gave me, well, me and my sister and my cousin, that NES. When my parents were saying no, he went out and got this NES. And I had to stay at his place so we could keep going to his place to play it. And with the NES there, we were there all the time.
That was pretty much it right there. The next time, he went to a flea market or whatever it was, I went with him, and it just kind of evolved into what it is today.
I play video games as well, and I do collect some games, but it's not the type of thing that I put a lot of effort or time or money into. For me, the passion has always been toys. Transformers, Star Wars, things like that, He-Man. Some of the more obscure toy lines that that I had as a kid. It's one thing trying to buy stuff on eBay. It's another thing going out to flea markets and antique stores and garage sales and finding stuff. The thrill of the hunt. Dude, there's some good stuff in here.
Get the police academy, guys. I'm gonna regret it if I don't.
Yeah, you're gonna regret it if you don't get these. And make sure there's no more Ghostbusters in here. You know what's gonna be funny? Is this gonna air and somebody's gonna see some figures like, dude, you passed up a figure that's like,
yeah, probably.
You know what I mean? Super rare. It means more. It means more if you find the stuff buried in a box in somebody's garage sale.
Me wanting to collect went from wanting to reconnect with my childhood and play the games that I had, that I wanted to play again, things that I remember. It went from that to wanting to basically have everything. I got so obsessed with wanting to just collect every game that I come on. Rare ones too. It was like this treasure hunt to find really rare stuff. And I think it shifted a little bit more towards just the thrill of finding something rare as opposed to just wanting to have something that you have a connection with and get joy out of. So it shifted a little bit, but it didn't take away from the stuff that really has meaning to me just because I wanted to go out and find a rare NES game that I never played in a million years and never had anything to do with back when I was a kid.
I remember one day counting how many Nintendo games I had as an adult, and I was about 100. I was like, wow, 100 games, this is crazy. We never had this many growing up. We did have I don't know, maybe 25, 30 games on the Nintendo growing up. But you got to remember, with 6 of us, every time there was a birthday or Christmas or something like that, it was, what do you want? Well, I want this video game.
It was really easy in those early days of collecting because nobody really cared as much as they do now, not nearly as much. So you could buy a lot of games for $100 and there'd be 50, 60, 70, 80 games in there, and then you take what you need, you sell the duplicates, and basically you've recouped a lot of the money that you spent on the lot. And so that's how I gathered a lot of my gaming early collection is doing that, just buying so many lots and then selling off the rest that I didn't need.
And I was like, wow, this is really cool. I've got most of, if not everything I had growing up as far as Nintendo goes, and then some. I really liked the Genesis back in the day as well, so let me get a Genesis. And from there, it just evolved and exploded into a huge collection of video games.
Yeah, I was so obsessed with finding every game on the NES. I printed out a sheet of all the games, and it would say that what the rarity was on it, and I would just check off. Jay and I would go to flea market after flea market. We would just, and his ex-wife was into it too. Like, she got really into it. I mean, so both of them were tag teaming places around town to go, like Goodwills and Salvation Armies, and getting all these lots. And I'm like, and catching me slipping basically, because I was doing the same thing, because a lot of times we wouldn't do it together. We'd just go separate days or whatever, and he would find, or she would find something at this crazy deal with a bunch of games, and I would just be like, oh my God, I was just there yesterday and it hadn't been put out yet, or I was gonna go this afternoon and they went this morning. So it became almost this competition as well between the two of them tag teaming me.
To each his own, but for me personally, I want to collect things that are going to make me smile, things that are going to make me remember something from 30-something years ago. Things that I think just look cool and I want to kind of play around with on my shelf. I just want to have things that I'm going to enjoy. I think it is easy to kind of take things too far and want that particular game so bad, even though you're probably never going to play it, or you don't even care for it if you have. I want to buy games that I'm going to play, that I'm going to enjoy. I want to buy action figures that, that are going to make me smile. And I think focusing on that and keeping that in mind makes collecting in general much more enjoyable.
I would like to think that, and I think most of my friends will say this, I'm a pretty responsible adult. I make sure that my bills are paid. I make sure that my kid has food in his stomach. But, toys is another thing that I've always loved, even as I got older and became a young adult. It's one of those things that just never left me. It's just toys and video games just never left me.
Every once in a while, I'll run across something I had that I totally forgot about, and this flood of memories and feelings come back to you. The same way that you have when you hear a song that you haven't heard in ages on the radio.
Well, I look at the games that I have now and I'm like, is it necessary? Do I need all these games? No, I don't. If I ever got rid of my collection, I'd get rid of a lot of the stuff, but the things that I would never in a million years at this point ever get rid of are the things that I grew up and have this connection with. The physical NES, Super Nintendo, the games that I played and grew up with, I would never get rid of those. They mean too much to me. A lot of them aren't my original games that I physically owned. They're somebody else's that made their way to my collection, but it's those memories I have attached to them.
I can pass these things along, and I have, to my son as well. He's 11. He loves G1 Transformers. I wasn't a huge Transformer guy growing up, but that's what he likes. He loves these. His uncle Melvor, he goes and plays with his from time to time, because Melvor does have all of his original Transformers he had as a kid. And my son has actually said, I want to build a time machine to go back in time so I can buy all these G1 Transformers. So it's kind of a passing along, if you will, a lot of it with me.
I have a lot of great memories with my grandfather. Whenever I pop in one of those games, I'm immediately transported, and it's just this instant connection with all that.
It's a link to that past, a link to that childhood and that sense of wonder, and having fun in the backyard playing with our Transformers and our G.I. Joes. it just kind of harkens me back to a simpler time.
The memories and the feelings attached to that toy line, seeing this certain G.I. Joe, remembering where I was when I finally got my General Hawk. I was actually at an H-E-B grocery store down in Corpus Christi, Texas. Remembering, I guess, simpler times. A lot of people will say this, simpler times.
Maybe we are too attached to the past. That's not for me to decide. I just know that whenever I see one of those games or one of those toys that I grew up with in my home, it brings good feelings. It makes me smile. So that's good enough for me.